Back in July of 2022, I made a video about a self-hosted Linktree alternative called Little Link. Now, if you're not familiar with Linktree or Little Link, the idea is to have a page with all of your social media links, websites, and other ways to find, contact, or support you in your profile. So sites like Linktree can be a great way to share all of your information in one place, but there are often trade-offs when using third-party solutions. Now, while the free tier on Linktree offers unlimited links, your data is on someone else's server, and you don't have any control over what they do with your data. LinkStack fixes this issue by letting you host an instance for yourself or for a community of like-minded individuals. Maybe you don't want to host your own instance right now, but would like to check out LinkStack. That is perfectly fine, as you can head over to the instances page on the LinkStack website and find multiple instances being hosted by community members. But wait, you say, didn't you just talk about hosting your data on third-party solutions? You're right. I did, but what Julian, the creator of LinkStack, did was made it so that you can export your profile data and move it to a different LinkStack instance with just a few clicks, and we will cover that here in just a little bit. Basically, what this means is you can test out LinkStack on a community member's setup, and then you can export your data and move it to your own instance if you decide you want to do that later on. So let's take a look at LinkStack, and then we'll get into the setup process. First, we'll take a look at the user side of things, and then we'll come back and take a look at the admin section. When a user first signs in, they'll see their dashboard that will have data about the number of links they have on the site, as well as how many links they have received across all of their links. There's also a link on this page to view and edit your links. Now, down the left side of the page, there's a series of links to navigate the user's account. The first link after the dashboard link is to add links to your profile. The add link page is interesting because it has a few different options. We can click select block and choose from a few different options of websites, custom links, vCards, email addresses, telephone numbers, headers, spacers, or text. Each of these options has a predefined layout depending on which one you choose. Please note that you don't have to use the select block option. It's just there if you want to use it. Below that, there's a drop down with dozens of options for different websites to choose from. And after you've selected the option for the site you want to link to, you can then enter a custom title and then enter the URL that you want to link to. Now, the custom title isn't required, but it's there for SEO and screen reader purposes. Once you've entered the information that you want to use for a particular link, you can click Save or Save and Add More. Clicking Save and Add More will add the entry to the database and then refresh the page so that you can keep building your profile. If we now go back to the menu on the left side of the page, there are more options under the personalization heading. On the links page, you have a couple of options. The first is to click the Add New Link button, but that will just take you back to the page that we were just on. The other option is to scroll down and enter the URLs for the different available profiles listed on this page. And once you've entered the URLs that you want to use, you can scroll down and click on Save Links. Julian and his team have really done a great job making this site a really simple platform for just about anyone to use. Next, in the left column, there's an appearance link. This page will allow us to change our profile picture, change our page URL, our display name, as well as add a profile description as a way to introduce ourselves on our profiles. The last option on this page is to choose whether or not we want to have a share button shown on our profile page for people to share our profile. The last link on the left column is for themes, and users will be able to choose different themes for their profile. But it should be noted that users will not be able to upload themes to the site. They will only be given the ability to choose from the themes that have already been uploaded by administrators. Users can, however, upload a custom background to be used in the theme of their choice. Now, I just want to note that you can, as an administrator, disable that, and we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. So that covers a good chunk of what the users can do to build their profile, but we're not quite done with this part of the website. If we head to the top right of the page, we can see our username and what our account type is. And if we click our username, we'll be presented with some more options. Let's start with profile. This should look familiar, as it's the same page we saw when we clicked the appearance link in the left menu. So let's click our username again and then head over to settings. This page will allow us to change our password and see our role, and more than that, we can export our profile data on this page if we want to move our profile to a different server or instance. Or we can take our exported profile data from an old instance and use this page to upload the profile information to our new instance. The last option on this page is one that you'll want to be careful with, as it will allow you to delete your account. The next to last option in the menu at the top right of the page is called styling, and it allows us to change the overall aesthetic of the admin panel that we've been using to build our profiles. And as we can see, the very last option here in the top right is a simple one that just lets us log out. One last thing that I want to mention before we move over to the admin area is that we can click the drop-down button next to the view page, and we can generate and save a QR code that will link to our profile if we decide we'd like to do that. So that's the user side of things out of the way. So now let's take a look at the administrative dashboard. When you log in as an admin user, you'll see a very similar dashboard as to what we saw as a standard user, but there is a new section on the left called administration. So if we click that, our first option in the submenu is config, and there's quite a bit on this page, so let's take a look. First, there's an alternative configuration editor that will allow you to use a text editor to change the settings on the page rather than using the different toggles and options in the administrative section. There's also a PHP info button that will take you to a page that will give you all of the information about your instance's PHP information. Next, there are a few links that will just take you to different sections of this administrative page. The first section is called application and will allow you to enable registration and email verification. And please note that this does require an SMTP server. You can use the built-in option that comes with this instance, or what I recommend is actually disabling that and then using your own SMTP server. You can also decide to manually verify new users, and you can set the email address where you'd like to receive notifications from the website as an administrator. Next, you can set a user page as the homepage if you wanted to. Otherwise, just leave this as default and it will just show the default login page. Now, the force links to be HTTPS is a great option to prevent mixed content warnings from part of the site trying to load via HTTP and other sites trying to load as HTTPS. The application title will just be the name of the website, and the hide verification checkmark is an option that you can use to disable the verification icon on administrative and VIP pages. Next, we have the panel settings section of the site. This is mostly about notifications, but there are also options for enabling iframes to preview your profile as you're building it, as well as enabling or disabling the ability for users to upload their own custom background. Next, we have the security section. This section allows admins to disable custom syntax and profile descriptions, as well as custom code in themes. You can also enable or disable the ability to update themes from the admin panel, as well as prevent people from exporting or importing their profile data. The advanced section allows us to join the beta program to get new updates and features early, but of course that does come with some of its own inherent risks. You can also enable maintenance mode, disable backups before updating, enable custom meta tags on each page, and enable social logins. Now, you can also redirect all pages to HTTPS, but be sure you know how your reverse proxy will interact with this setting to prevent any kind of issues later on. Next, we have the SMTP settings, and by default, your instance will use a pre-built SMTP server. But as I mentioned earlier, I suggest turning that off via the toggle and then using your own SMTP server by filling in the information under custom SMTP server. The footer links section is just that. It allows you to decide which links are going to be shown in the footer of the website. Simple enough. Lastly, we've got a debug section that you can enable or disable as you need to for your troubleshooting needs. So that is the overview of how to use LinkStack from both a user's point of view as well as from the admin point of view. So now let's take a look at how easy this is to get set up using Docker. Now, of course, you can deploy this via command line or via Portainer, whichever your preference happens to be. And the Docker Compose that I'm going to show you here in just a moment will be linked in the video description. So looking at the Docker Compose, the service is LinkStack, as is the container name and the host name. The environment variables are pretty straightforward, but let's take a look at them anyway. You've got a domain name for HTTP and HTTPS. These should probably be the same. You'll want to enter the primary administrator email address so that the site knows what privileges to give your account when you sign in as an admin for the first time. You'll want to set your time zone, PHP limit, and file size limit to fit your needs for whatever your setup happens to be. Next, we've got ports, and by default, LinkStack will use ports 80 and 443, but you can change them if you need to for whatever reason. Just be sure to only change the first half of each of these lines. Never change the colon or anything after it. Now, the volumes section only has one line, and it's just the volume that the container will use. Now, oftentimes I will show how to use a mapped volume here, where you might have something like home/docker/linkstack, but for some reason there appear to be some permissions issues with that kind of a setup for this container, so using a Docker volume as shown really is the better option. Next, we've got a restart policy of unless stopped. This means that if the server reboots or something else happens, the container will make every effort to start back up unless you've gone in and manually stopped it. The image line is just the Docker image that we're going to use for this container, so I wouldn't mess with that. And then lastly, we've got the Docker volume defined as required for a Docker Compose setup like we've got. Now, once you've got all of your settings configured for your setup, you can deploy the Docker Compose and wait for just a few minutes for it to come up. Once the container has deployed, you can now configure your reverse proxy to access it on the port of your choice, and then access your setup via the domain name that you've configured via your reverse proxy and the Docker Compose that we just went through. The setup process is really just a few clicks, and then you're ready to start configuring and using your new instance of LinkStack. If you'd like more information about LinkStack, there will be links in the video description that will take you to the GitHub page as well as the official website and a few other little things down there. If you like LinkStack, there's a couple of different ways you can support the project. You can either give the GitHub repository a star, or you can actually become a GitHub sponsor. If you'd like to see what others are doing with their instances, you can head over to the instances page of their main website and maybe even apply to have your instance featured. If you'd like to join my instance that I've already got set up, I will have a link to that in the video description. And if you'd like to support what I do here, you can do things like the video, leave a comment, or click the subscribe button if you haven't done that already. You can also get ad-free access to my content by becoming a patron, a channel member, or joining dbtech.fans for just a couple of bucks a month. With all of that said, though, I am going to go ahead and wrap this up. I do want to thank you guys for spending a few minutes of your day with me today, and I'll talk to you in the next video.